were not told to attend. And how can you have a hearing without one set of people there?
Yeah.
And then the second time, when we finally got it on, the opposition secretary wanted to know what the sound a monkey makes. Is it ooh, ooh, or ooh, ah, to my 15-year-old captain? To which I told him not to answer the question because I thought it was rude. I thought it was bang out of order. But yet a member of the panel from the Essex County FA said it's a perfectly good question. And for me, that told me everything I needed to know about where the decision was going to go, Yeah. When you're victimised, you have to prove that you're the victim. It's the way that the game is. It doesn't it doesn't lend itself to people that have been on the end of this abuse and that want justice. It doesn't lend itself at all. And I'm still waiting at a stage where we do get that, because I call the grassroots level of the game the wild, wild west. The professional level of the game, I'm sorry, it still has its issues. Yes, there's cameras there and all that, but it still has massive issues that needs to be addressed. And I think we're very good at having a go at Bulgaria or Italy or Montenegro, but yet we don't sort things out that are there on our own doorstep.
I totally agree. And when we have incidents that we see within our own game, it kind of gets brushed under the carpet, and we, I think as a media or as a society, we, as you say, we try to deflect and look out and basically say, well, as you say, it's not as bad as Romania. It's not bad but we have, equally as bad incidents. We've had loads of incidents that have happened recently. And, and through time, I remember going to a game, and I've been to a couple of games over the years where the racism was really rife. And fortunately,
it's been there for years, Steve.
It was never directed at me. I was quite lucky, but it was close enough to me for me to get wound up about it, but to be placated by the people around me and say, look, it's just me and you, and could be 20, 30, 200, however many people that would potentially join in with this person. And it's about picking your moments and picking your time. So
where was this?
So one of the games was a Millwall game, and and it was my mate's a Millwall fan, and I lived around the corner from Millwall at the time. I literally lived around the corner. So I never went there because they had a really bad reputation for racism, justifiably. And it was a Liverpool game. So it was Liverpool when I think Millwall must have been in the first division. John Barnes.
They were.
Yeah, and John Barnes was visiting. And, I was in the Millwall and just the monkey chant, the bananas that were being thrown down. And I looked to my left, and I would say 8, 9 people across. Don't forget it's terraces rather than seats. 8, 9 people across, 3, 4 rows ahead was a very famous radio broadcaster in the crowd. Now, I'm not saying that he was actually involved and making those chants as well himself, but it's just from then it just never sat well with me, knowing that's his club, and that's and you can't be accountable. I mean, I went to a game, I went to a Spurs Man United game a number of years later when I was working, and I went with a mate, and Paul Ince was playing. Bad reputation, everyone hated him because of who he was and hard nut and all this sort of stuff.
West Ham boy,
and he was he did something, and someone made a comment, and I started and I went for him, and my mate just said, look, I understand you're frustrated, but it's just me and you, mate. We can't, what can we do? Just me and you and him, probably with a whole load of mates, so it's difficult to listen to. Like you, Troy, I've been racially abused earlier this year, and I never told anyone about it, but it really affected me on the day.
Was it at Spurs?
No. This was away from Spurs. Where was I? I was in Essex, as it happened. And I'm not saying it's mutually exclusive to Essex. I know it's not, but I happened to be in Essex for the day. And some guy, I turned and some guy was angry, chased me down the street. I pulled over, wondering what he wanted to, why he was chasing me. Ran down the window. I got effed and jeffed at and called a black cunt, and then, sorry, excuse my language, and then off he went. And I can deal with it now because it's 5 months down the line.
Steve, don't you think? I don't know about you, but I travel for a living, so predominantly I'm on a train and I go to various football clubs on a daily basis. Obviously, not for the last 4 months, but this year is no different to every single year that I'm traveling on a train.
Mm.
I know that I'm a different colour skin to most people. I'm aware that I'm black. I get racially profiled on a regular occurrence. I don't want people to think that because Black Lives Matter, this has just come out of the blue, or that we're talking about racism because it's the topic of agenda. No, I feel the colour of my skin on a regular basis.
Well,
on a regular basis.
I grew up in Brixton, Troy.
Yeah.
In the 80s, 70s. 73 I was born, King's College Hospital. Blacks and whites never used to mix in pubs. They used to have their own pubs. Yeah. It was bad. It was really bad. My mates at school were black. I didn't see, the colour didn't make no difference to me growing up. Probably different to a lot. My parents weren't racist. But I know that people in Brixton were at the time. I took my mum back there when she was dying for motor neurons disease, and we went back into the Hero of Switzerland, and it had mixed. It changed Brixton. And I didn't recognise it because I used to think, why are my mates' parents not coming in here to drink, from school? I never used to get it. It never used to make sense to me. But it's changing. That's changed. Brixton's changed. So slowly but surely we're going to get better. Maybe it's going to take another 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years.
Yeah, but all I would say, Stacey, why should it? Why should it? We're in 2020 for God's sake. We're in a period of time where we're supposed to appreciate each other and understand that we're all different, and we are all different, but we all bring something quite unique to our communities, society, and whatever else. But I'll tell you now, because of this period of time, I think it's worse. I think it's getting worse. I haven't been out there much, but I think it's getting worse out there.
It has got worse. And
I
would say, so my incident was before this Black Lives Matter issue kicked off. Okay, so I'd say it's 5 months ago. It's not, George Floyd incident was probably 2-3 months ago. My incident was back in sort of February, March. Okay, this year. But in terms of society has got worse, I think, since a key incident, and it's people have said to me, like, not everyone who voted Brexit is racist, but all racists voted Brexit, and there is a key distinction. So you can't, that people can vote Brexit for their own reasons, but definitely the people that were racist voted Brexit for what they believed in, and it wasn't necessarily the vote that was the issue. It was the campaign around the vote that was the issue, where people that have no accountability and are not subjected to the stuff that that they're not going to be subjected to the abuse, can be careless with their words and can use xenophobic language and nationalistic language without fear of what the repercussions are going to be for people, where you suddenly see an increase of people being racially abused on tubes and on the bus, and people being emboldened to use language that I hadn't had to see or experience personally for 10, 15, maybe 20 years or more. I hadn't had it from when I was young, Troy. Like in my experience, the way I was brought up, the area I was brought up in, I was taught to mix and to not use my colour as a hindrance or as an excuse for not a hindrance, but not as an excuse for not succeeding.
What did your parents say, gents? What did your parents? How have your parents
Listen, I wasn't fortunate enough. My dad left it. I basically had to grow up by myself. I had to grow up by myself. You know, my dad left very early. My mum was out working all the time, to be totally honest, just to make sure we had food on the table. You know, and made sure I had a pair of shoes to go to school in that I had to wear for the whole year round. I didn't really have that family environment or family structure. So I was a free spirit. I was just, you know, my mum didn't get in till 7. From school, when I was supposed to be straight in 3:30, I got in at 7:15. My mum wouldn't know any wiser. Do you know what I mean? I just stayed out with my friends. We had youth clubs then. So I went out and we were in youth clubs and everything was football. Exactly. Everything was football. Now, I'm like you, Stace. Growing up around me was white friends, Asian friends, Greek friends, more black friends. Do you know what I mean? People it didn't matter to me. If you could kick a football, you're my boy. Do you know what I mean? And if you could kick it good, you're on my team. So it don't matter. It don't matter. That's all we did. All we did. And I wasn't taught that my colour could be a hindrance, you know? I played in teams that were multicultural. I travelled with, you know, when we're travelling as a football team, we were predominantly black, particularly the district. It wasn't till an experience at 15, I think it was about 15, when I truly realised that I was different. And it was 2 experiences in a short space of time. So we travelled to Middlesbrough. We were playing in the quarter-final of the National Cup for the district. We travelled to Middlesbrough playing at the old Ayresome Park. And we were having food the night before, and I remember this little kid. It could have only been about 3 or 4. I was sitting on a table with 2 white teammates and another black teammate. This kid came up to me because I was the first one in kind of like his eyesight, and stood there and just looked at me. Now, I've never felt as uncomfortable with a 3, 4, I don't know, maximum 5-year-old just looking at me, and he stared. His mum was over there and she twaddled along and pulled him away after what seemed like an eternity. And I realised he was looking at me because he'd never seen anyone of my colour skin before. And I was like this novelty to him. And then a week later, not football related, but I didn't have no money. So I remember buying my mum a birthday card. It was one of the first birthday cards I ever bought my mum. And I'm bouncing home. I even remember the road that it was just around the corner from the youth club. I'm bouncing home. And what I've done is I crossed the road without looking, as we do when we're young. Do you know what I mean? We always think we're quick, don't we? I crossed the road without looking. Geezer's come up, screeched, got out of the car, pulled the card from me, ripped it up, threw it on the floor and said, "You black CUNT." Got in his car and drove off. Those 2 experiences kind of shocked me into thinking, what's wrong with me? That's what it did for me. What is wrong with me? Why would one so young and one so old want to treat me in the way that they did? And I think I identify that as one of the moments that I realised that the colour of my skin could be an issue, could be a problem. I'm not saying it was, but I'm saying it was one of the moments when I realised it could be an issue. I went through the rest of my schooling, my footballing life and whatever else, having to experience, or the teams that I played with, having to experience certain elements where we knew we were being targeted. 1, because we were decent, but 2, predominantly because we were black. And I suppose that's what's hardened me to where I am today, to realise that I'm not having it. So sometimes where people are shocked, sometimes where people are saying, "Oh, I didn't know that stuff still happened." It's never gone away. 1, it's the way it's reported, and 2, your own personal ignorance tells you that you didn't think things, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, by the way, so listeners don't take that the wrong way, but your own personal ignorance, because you don't have to experience the things that I have to experience on a regular occurrence, means that actually, why would you think that it still existed, you know? But I think in this period of time, you look at the way our newspapers, we could go back, and the way our media report certain incidents, or how they show privilege between white and black.
They always will do, and that's got to change, Troy.
I hate that. Stace, it won't change. And sorry, I've got a flickering light. So 1 minute I think like I've got a halo over the top of my head. You know, they were called. Raheem Sterling called them out 18 months ago.
He did.
Remember when he called them out, and everyone was like, "Oh God, we didn't know we were like that." Oh, get lost. And that, by the way, they looked at themselves, reflected, and then the following